take whatever power, whatever word that they use. This word bust made First Take and Stephen A. rich.
I think though, and I know RC has the power to set this up, maybe you and Stephen A. should talk.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Around the Association. Now, Kwame Brown, we all know that he was former NBA player, first round pick of the Washington Wizards. And since then, actually he played through for like 7 different teams over his 13 career. Never lived up to what many believed warranted a first overall pick, right? And we all remember the online back and forths he actually had with All the Smoke host Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. Well, his biggest nemesis really seems to be Stephen A. Smith, and him and Stephen A. went around the colleges really talking about Kwame Brown and how big of a bust he was, and Kwame Brown recently sat down with the hosts of the Pivot podcast. Y'all need to check that out if you haven't. Really good podcast. The whole hour is really worth it. But a couple of things he mentioned in regards to Stephen A. Smith really stood out, with the reasoning. Now, if you don't recall some of the derogatory things Stephen A. said, take a listen here.
Is that a trick question?
You tell me.
They gave up Kwame Brown.
Two
Who
first
cares?
rounders.
I could care less.
Tied into his salary for 4 years.
First of all, Kwame Brown is gone. The City of Angels, Hollywood, just should be celebrated. Throw a parade already, whether you win a championship or not. This man was a bona fide scrub. He can't play. No disrespect whatsoever, but I'm sorry to tell everybody the truth. The man cannot play the game of basketball. He has small hands. He can't catch the ball. He's got bad feet. He can't really move, even though he's mobile. Doesn't really know what he's doing. Doesn't have a post move that he puts to memory that he can do 2 times in a row. He has no game whatsoever, plays no defense, doesn't have the heart, the passion, or anything that comes with it. And you're asking me whether they gave up too much? Please, the Los Angeles Lakers knew exactly what they were doing. They should be celebrating right now, and Kobe Bryant should not be saying a word.
Now, I think Stephen A. Smith made it clear his feelings on Kwame Brown. Now, Kwame Brown cracks back at Stephen A. was hilarious. I mean, he kind of had the internet on fire during that time. He was snapping on everybody. And if you haven't, you can just go back, probably just put in Kwame Brown responds to Stephen A. or Matt Barnes or Steven Jackson. He was cleaning house at that time. With everyone and Gilbert Arenas. He had a problem with Gilbert Arenas as well. Now, Kwame recently, with his comments on the Pivot podcast, he actually spoke very eloquently about the whole ordeal while still, wanting had an interesting question that made me do a little bit of research in regards to why Stephen A. back in the early 2000s, after he was drafted, spent so much time in colleges, traveling, speaking, having speaking engagements, really where he was highlighting and making Kwame Brown the butt of the joke. Listen to what Kwame Brown had to say here.
Is it really a critique when a man states an opinion and you've created a word called bust to where everything that I say now has been invalidated by this word, bust? I'm a #1 draft pick. You're looking at history in a room. Stephen A. Smith, a guy who can't do what I do, came up with a word that a guy working at Walmart can use against me and think it has some power. But you want me to believe that this is just talking about a game?
How much power does that word have?
It has power as far as dealerships, deals, and sponsorships. Who wants to work with a bust? That's the point that I was trying to make the entire time. They don't do that to white men.
Now that's interesting. I mean, really, we get so caught up sometimes with, the play on the court. You forget these people have a whole life outside of the court, and critiquing their game, even saying, hey, he's not living up to billing. But when you start doing these labels, I can see how that can mess up opportunities, for anyone. Once you're labeled a certain thing, if it's got a negative connotation, you're just not going to be able to command the same type of money as you would if that label was never there. You could be the same type of player, but that label can really, really hinder you. So that's something he said that I never even really thought about in regards to this whole situation. Now, Etan Thomas, a former NBA veteran, played many years in the league for several teams, and Etan was actually there in Washington whenever Kwame Brown got drafted, and he said he knows for a fact why Stephen A. went around on his smear campaign of Kwame Brown, and even stated that it was kind of foreshadowing the one and done rule. Now that's crazy. They not even foreshadowing. It was done intentionally to put Stephen A. out there like that. And we all know the NBA is a partner of ESPN, and they have those deals where they air their games there. So don't ever confuse business. Stephen A. is just a worker bee. Listen here to what Etan Thomas had to say in regards to Stephen A. and the then NBA commissioner David Stern.
What is your opinion, and why do you think they sent Stephen A. to those colleges to talk about me for over 10 years?
So I'll tell you why. I thought it's much bigger than Kwame Brown, and I wrote this in the article. Listen, I was a part of the union for a large majority of my time in the NBA. Mm-hmm. So Billy Hunter had me on the negotiating team. So I'm sitting across from David Stern and everybody else while we're negotiating the collective bargaining agreements and things like that, and going through a lockout and having meeting after meeting and things like that. So I'm there. I heard with my own ears David Stern repeat almost verbatim the false narrative that Stephen A. Smith said about Kwame Brown and him trying to impose the age limit. And he was saying this is the reason why we can't have high school players go straight into the NBA, because they're not ready. And then he started.
David Stern said that?
David Stern said that. I heard it with my ears him talking. I was right there. And he
seemed to always have a hard on for me. He seemed to always have a problem with me.
But it wasn't personal. It wasn't personal. It was because he wanted to use you as the, poster child for why high school athletes shouldn't go straight into the NBA. So it was and so Stephen A. Smith perpetuated that narrative over and over again.
Now, with everything that's went on, one thing that came up during the podcast was the potential for Kwame Brown, Stephen A. Smith to sit across with each other face to face. And this is what Kwame Brown had to say.
Take whatever power, whatever word that they use. This word bust made First Take and Stephen A. rich.
I think though, and I know RC has the power to set this up, maybe you and Stephen A. should talk. Ask him.
I've asked Stephen A. many times to have a conversation, but he's not gonna be able to answer those questions, because what I think it was to make this one and done rule set in place. I think I was the poster child for this one and done rule.
So let me know what you think. Kwame Brown, Stephen A., I'm sure if they were able to ever sit down face to face, Stephen A. would take a softer stance, just because having him in the room face to face, he seems to, go more hard at someone that, seemingly don't have a platform, or definitely not in front of them. But in no way is he, going to be all, you're a bum and all that in Kwame Brown's face. Don't believe it at all. Now, it would be good for them to talk and both of them to kind of grow from this. Stephen A. probably would say something along the lines that it was never personal, but he made it personal. There's no way to separate. I think one of the athletes, I can't remember who said it, but someone in the NFL once said, this NFL football is my life. So whenever you have something negative to say about me, it's always personal because it is my life. So that's just what it is. Now, you do have the right to critique, but let me know what you guys think. Would y'all be interested in watching a sit down between Kwame Brown and Stephen A. at this point, or should we just let sleeping dogs lie? This was a moment in history and just forget about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'm out.